So, we thought that for an after-lunch session we needed something to lift the spirits and challenge the minds. So we're going to move away slightly from the focus of much of the discussion thus far, which has been largely on sources, development, finance, to talk about how this gets used at the country level. So we're going to move from, so the session is going to focus on delivering results and making the links between different forms of finance and the challenges for governments in delivering results. So to achieve that, we're going to move slightly away from the global sphere and the global stage, and we're going to focus on country-level realities and some of the challenges faced by governments at the country level in absorbing finance to improve results on the ground. Before I introduce the panel that will make presentations to help us kick off the discussion on this, let me give you a couple of reflections based on some of the things that have emerged thus far in the conference, which I think point to the importance of this discussion in this particular session. First of all, I think we've heard loud and clear how much there is a need for more recipient voice in the SDG process. So here is, in this session, we're going to hear some of that, and we're going to move towards that perspective. Secondly, I think in the discussions about different forms of funding, private versus public, long-term versus short-term, it has emerged that at the country level there are different options available and different options related to the time frames for development results. It will be useful to get a reality check on what does it, how does that look like and feel like from a decision maker's perspective in a country, in a government in a particular country. And third, I understand there's been a lot of discussion about issues of capacities throughout the last day and a half, and particularly capacities in terms of absorbing finance, capacities around domestic revenue mobilizations. And again, all that I'm sure will come up in the context of discussions about the realities of the country from a country perspective. So to help us shift this discussion towards the realities of country of governments and country-level work, we've got three very distinguished speakers. On my right is Neil Cole, who will start the discussion. He's the Executive Secretary of CABRI, the Collaborative Africa Budget Reform Initiative, and prior to this, he was the Chief Director of the African Economic Integration Unit at the South African National Treasury and in the Budget Office. So he has plenty of experience of the challenges for governments in absorbing and utilizing development finance. He will kick off the discussion by reflecting a little bit on the relation between financing and budgeting and spending and how this all relates to the SDGs. We'll then move to Carolina Renteira, who is the lead economist for macrofiscal global practice at the World Bank. But before that, she was the Minister for Planning and National Budget Director of Colombia. So she'll be able to reflect on her experience in Colombia in budgeting and development planning. And last but not least is my colleague Philip Kraus, who leads the work at ODI in public financial management, and he will share findings and reflections from his ongoing research that looks at translating international goals into actions at the national level. So without further ado, Neil, please go ahead. You all have about 10 minutes, and I will be strict with that to make sure we have a good discussion
Thank
after
you.
your presentations.